Hey, Fitheads. Today we talk with Christopher Burres, the owner of SES Research, which is the first company to deliver carbon and nanomaterials, which we will dive into what even this is, but it sounds like the future.
The future. I was going to say magic.
Magic. The future is magic, and also it is an ampule of purple goo. There's a teaser for you.
As far as we can tell, if you take it, I guess that's unclear.
If you are a rat and you take it, you will live 90% longer. That's what I said. 90, not 9, 9D.
Also, shout out to all of our rat listeners. We don't shout you guys out enough, and we love you.
True.
And we want to just make sure that you're in a safe space and you feel heard.
Hit us up in the comments. Rat listeners.
with your little claws.
Oh no, this intro is taking a turn. Anyway, it is fascinating. I certainly started out skeptical, and you know me and my ability to get convinced of things. So look for a video of me using this product in the future.
Yeah. And I guess, Allie, I have a question for you. What are you going to get me for my 125th birthday?
Obviously, more carbon nanomaterials.
I wanted socks.
Welcome to Total Fitheads.
Serious fitness for not so serious people.
Welcome, Chris. We are so glad to have you.
Allie, Max, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to some tough conversations and some fun, probably.
Some tough conversation.
Hard-hitting journalism.
Wait, Max and I were talking about this. Go ahead.
I feel like I'm waiting for you to shove me in a corner and extract information from me.
Tell us the truth right now. That's what's going to happen. No, we just want to give you a suggestion and then see how you build a scene upon that, because we know you have an improv background.
Oh, yes. That is fun. Yes. And I'm happy to do a scene with you guys.
Great. And it's only in verse because I like rhyming. Ready? Okay.
It's going to make a lot less sense.
Okay, for real, let's talk fitness, health, longevity. First hard-hitting question. What the crap is a nano antioxidant?
So a nano antioxidant is really we can start at the beginning, right? So in 1985, here in Houston, 3 scientists discovered the third form of carbon. So I'm holding up this little molecule. If you're just listening, imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. Again, the scientists discovered it in 1985, and then they went on to win the Nobel Prize for that discovery in 1996. So 11 short years from discovery to winning the Nobel Prize. The molecule's amazing. It turns into a diamond. It's harder than a diamond. It's got 6-fold symmetry. So there's 6 planes through this molecule through which it has perfect symmetry. That makes it an incredibly resilient molecule. You can actually fire it at 15,000 miles an hour against a plate of steel. Most molecules will just shred apart. A buckyball will bounce right back. I like to say that it performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So that's better ink, better tires, better batteries, better photocells, all of this industrial stuff. Am I scaring you yet?
Sounds like
kind of. Because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but this really great ink may be going in us.
Yes, we may be consuming. I'm consuming it regularly. Why would you do that? That's actually what we asked people who called us. So what had happened was In 2012, they published the results of a peer-reviewed, published scientific study, and it was actually a toxicity study. They thought this molecule, for various reasons, would be toxic. And instead of being toxic, the test subjects they gave it to, in this case it was Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. So it's the single longest longevity experimental result in human history. And that was the day that I kind of changed from carbon nanomaterial scientist to the direction of a supplement. And it sounds like you might have a question.
Oh, no, this was just an interjection. 90% is so much longer. I don't even know if I want to live that long. That's how long it is.
A lot of people say that, actually. And if the average human lives 90% longer, that means the average human is living to about 152. Now, think about that. That's not the oldest, right? Because if it were that's the average human. So it's a significant difference. And you're not the only person who has that reaction. I don't know if I would want to live longer. And at first, for me, it was a very weird response because I've always had in my head, I don't know where I got the number. I don't even know when I got the number, but I always thought it was going to live to 125. And I have an engineering background, so 125, nice round number. And so I did believe, if I'm honest, that I probably wasn't going to be in the best shape at 125, but that was going to be my target, right? I think if you pose the question different and I say, Allie,
I don't want to sound crazy. I'm definitely making it to 125, but I'm not running marathons.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like crap.
Okay. Yeah. Just check.
So if I ask the question a little bit differently, right? And the question is, hey, if you have the same mental capacity that you have today and you have the same physical capacity that you have today, would you then be interested in living longer?
Are you telling me that I have 125 years and my snatch still isn't any higher? I'm mad. I took all that time to not even improve. No, I get what you're saying. Yes, of course. You're talking health span versus lifespan. So if you extend my health span, then I'm like, yeah, I'm on board. Who cares if Elon Musk is president or whatever we do at that point? That's actually not that bad of a scenario. There could be worse.
Or there was just a mass exodus to Mars, right? Whatever it is, get off the planet as quickly as possible. That really does change the dynamic for people. And for most people, like you guys did, it kind of changes it. And like, okay, I have to be honest. There's some people who are like, nah, I still don't want to live longer. And I'm like, well, maybe you should reevaluate what you do on a day-to-day basis, because there's a lot of things that are enjoyable in life that you may not be experiencing. So yeah, it's a quantum shift from what we currently think about getting old, about living longer. And I think we're in the middle of that. I mean, you guys are aware of the book Lifespan by Dr. David Sinclair. He's talking about pulling levers and people living a lot longer and living a lot healthier. I think that we're seeing that change. I actually read a book. It was kind of a smaller book. I found it on Amazon. And the whole premise of the book was, hey, at some point there will be a human who is the last to die of natural causes. And if you're talking about a healthy span, right, extending your health span, it will really suck to be that last person to die of natural causes.
Bummer.
Right? Because there will be one. and the premise of the book was like, do your research, understand the things that you need to do to live as long as you can in order to try and avoid being that last person who doesn't live longer. Another interesting piece of the study was, so typically a Wistar rat lives about 32 months and they have a known amount of tumors in their body, right? The longer they live, the more tumors they have in their body. In our case, the ones that were given MyVitalC, the formula MyVitalC, by the way, my company did supply the material and my company is mentioned in that original publication. The MyVitalC rats lived out to 62 months and none of them had any tumors. Right. So pretty phenomenal stuff going on here. Yeah. It's interesting. It's weird to be me, honestly, because I didn't design it. Like here's how I describe my journey to become a supplement guy versus other people's journeys. I think usually you get into the supplement business one of two ways. And one of them is you decide you're going to be wealthy and you decide you're going to do it with supplements. And I have no problem with people being wealthy. It's just not how I ended up here. The other is people have, it's more altruistic, of course. People have their own health problems or maybe health problems of a loved one, and they solve that. They do the research and they find solutions through supplementation, and now they want to save the world. Hopefully it doesn't surprise you. I'm not against people saving the world. I just didn't end up here like that. I have been manufacturing this molecule since 1991. They thought it would be toxic, so they put it in this crazy toxicity study. Instead of being toxic, the rats live 90% longer. And now I'm kind of thrust into this industry, which quite honestly, I tried very hard not to get into. I tried hard enough not to get into it that we actually at one point added not for human consumption to our labeling, right? So when that first, and this is me, like, it's great ink and batteries and tires. I mean, that's literally when that study came out. You guys are kind of aware there's a fringe group of biohackers who will just try about anything, right? And they started calling us.
I'm not aware, and I'm glad I don't know about them because I would join them.
Or would you? Talking to one of them right I feel there's emails 2 years back that might argue the opposite.
Ooh, let's unpack this.
So biohackers started calling us and saying, hey, how much in a dose? And really, we're just carbon nanomaterial scientists at that time. We're thinking, wait, you're asking how much of this stuff that makes great inks, batteries, tires, and photocells you should put in your body. We were like, approximately none. Like, we added not for human consumption to our labeling. Now, a review of the literature was clear. If you process carbon-60, this kind of raw molecule, and you process it correctly, it is not harmful. There is no data. There's nothing in the literature showing any sort of harm. But we were just conservative scientists, and that's, our approach is like, hey, I wasn't taking it yesterday. I'm probably not going to take it today. And so you think about our journey, we started manufacturing in 1991, and all the way until about mid-2013, we do not need to have not for human consumption on our labeling, and we added it in mid-2013. Really from 2013 until 2017, people were calling us. They're calling us on, a couple of times a week, and they're saying things like, hey, my knee pain's gone. And we're like, you mean the knee pain of your rat, right? Because it literally says not for human consumption on the labeling. And they're like, yeah, my rat, and we were getting pretty amazing testimonials, frankly, kinds of testimonials that made me uncomfortable, right? Like, I believe you, the person on the other side of the phone telling me what's happening to you, but I don't know what to do with the information because it doesn't fit in any of the I don't know, in any of the silos that I'm kind of have been educated to follow, right? As a scientist. So people are saying good things, amazing things about the product once or twice a week. Mid 2013, by the way, I'm just, if you guys have any questions or need to cut me off, please let me know. In about mid 2017 or latter part of 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following started talking about all the benefits he was getting taking the product on a daily basis. And our phone went from ringing.
Can we name drop, please? I'm interjecting.
Yes, it was Cliff High, who's big in the Bitcoin space, and we'll call it information space. So he was talking about the benefits he was getting taking it on a daily basis, and our phone went from like 2 times a week to 10 times a day. So my business partner and I, again, we've got not for human consumption on the labeling. We're like, what are we going to do with this? Right? This is is obviously some sort of entrepreneurial opportunity. The literature says it's safe. And we really asked ourselves two questions. The first one is a moral question. Am I comfortable selling it, or are we comfortable selling it? I take it. My wife takes it. Everybody on our team takes it. Yeah, I'm comfortable selling it. And then the next is, of course, the FDA and the FTC. And you got to, cross T's, dot I's, and make sure you're following their processes. And really, it was 2018 that we kind of put together MyVitalC, and I've been, getting onto podcasts and sharing this information with cool people like you. Maybe not as cool as you guys, because I really do think you guys are cool. But been sharing it with a lot of people, and the testimonials just keep coming in. I got one from the weekend. I've got a personal trainer, and his grandmother's dog, they were about to put it down because it wasn't moving, gave it my product, and she couldn't be happier with us. And I know that sounds like, I don't know, something I just made up, because it feels like saying, when I'm saying it, it feels like made up, but I could show you the text message.
No, I definitely believe you. It still feels like N of 1 studies. If you did, okay, yeah, I guess a couple of things. Tell me about rats versus humans, and then why aren't we doing human studies? I guess I'd have to live a long time before we could find it conclusive.
Yeah, I think the longevity study on humans is probably out the door. You're looking at a 152-year study if you get some results similar to what's in the original rat study. Sometimes we call it the Paris study. It was done out of the University of Paris. That was one of my questions. So as we're kind of going down this path of, all right, we are going to get into the supplement industry, we are going to bring this to the market. What is this rate? Like, how do you say, okay, this happened in a rat, and does it happen in a human? And the first point is, we always do rat studies before humans. And if they were irrelevant, we wouldn't be doing rat studies before human studies, right? It would be some other animal model. And I actually had the opportunity. I was on my business partner and I. We share a wall, and I could hear him on the phone with a Dr. Kudabek. He is with DePaul University, and they were talking about rat studies and human studies. And so he's a professor who does kind of both things. He transitions rat studies into human studies. So I hopped over there and asked him, hey, what is the applicability? And he goes, well, listen, sorry, this is a little bit of a long story, but he said, listen, when you ask most scientists this question, like what is the applicability or non-applicability from rats to humans, they will often give you a very particular case study. And that case study is there's a morning sickness drug that they gave to rats. There were no problem with the rats, so they moved on to the human trial. And when they moved on to the human trial, unfortunately, at some low percentage, there were deformities in the fetus. And he said, a lot of scientists will hold up to you and say, hey, this is proof that what happens in a rat doesn't happen in a human. And then he went on to say, but the problem with that is, had they looked at the fetuses of the rats, they would have actually noticed the deformities, and they actually looked at the wrong case. So I'm more in the business of taking rat studies to human studies than I've ever been, right? Like that was not on my radar 5 years ago. But I'm not the guy who's been doing rat studies and taking them to human studies for a long time, in a university environment. And that was his response. And so the reality is there's a lot of applicability. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing rat studies. Now, this is just a kind of unique note. We are actually more similar to rats than rats are to mice. And it's one of those things like your genetic intuition is often not very accurate.
Yeah, it's based on size of ears and whiskers.
Yeah. And cuteness, I guess at some age.
Debatable. I'm pretty much as adorable as a rat. Confirmed.
All right, so cuteness is off the table. We can take that out of the survey.
Okay. So are there studies now going on then, I guess, with humans, or you still have some hoops to jump through before you get to that point?
There are certainly some hoops to jump through. A lot of it is going to be funding, right? Because human trials are extremely expensive. And really the next thing that needs to happen. So this study out of the University of Paris was published in 2012. Nobody's really stepped up to the plate and redone the study. Like the classic scientific process is one institution. First off, you have a hypothesis, right? In this case, rats will die quickly. By the way, I love to give credit to his name is Dr. Bati out of the University of Paris, because if there's one thing that's true, it is that when the control group, in this case, the rats that were only given water, when all of the control group are dead and all of the quote unquote toxic group are still alive, it's not toxic, right? Like your toxicity study is officially done when all the rats given water have died and everything else is alive. But they continued to do the animal husbandry necessary. And this was about 2.5 years to keep the rats alive as long as they live naturally. Out to 62 months. So an additional 2.5. Well, it's an additional 2.5 years on a study that should have been less than 2 years, right? If you're doing a toxicity study, you're going to inside, you're hoping they die early, and then you've proven it's toxic, and now you can move on to the whatever next study you're going to do. So that study was published in 2012. The next thing that's supposed to happen in the scientific process is some other institution, different, is supposed to recreate that study. And nobody's actually stepped up to the plate to do that. So we're in the process of jumping through hoops. We've got to do about kind of 5 smaller ad hoc studies. We've got 2 of those done. The third one's underway before we can actually launch into a recreation of that original rat study. And there's a couple things that we'll do different from that study, but the goal will be to kind of recreate it and enhance it if at all possible.
But before that, you're still able to put this on the market. I mean, I've seen it for sale on your site.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So when you start talking about supplements, it's really, again, in that period while we had not for human consumption on our labeling, I was doing research to kind of understand, it wasn't just us who had a product on the market, it's others. And where does the FDA really sit on this? The reality is the FDA, and I actually I was on the FDA website. I took a screenshot because I was pretty sure that this was going to be removed at some point. And it said the FDA does not have to approve a supplement in order for a supplement to be brought to market, which sounds not like you would expect. And again, I probably still have the screenshot on my computer because I didn't think that was going to stay up any longer. But if you dig deep into it and you think about what is a new supplement, right? So if you just add a little bit more vitamin D or a little less vitamin C, you have a different supplement. And there's no way the FDA is going to keep track of this. There's no way that these can be brought to market prior to FDA approval. And so the FDA does have a process where you are legally required to report adverse effects. And to date, we haven't had to report any.
Any at all?
Any at all. So the worst adverse effects that we see are people who take a teaspoon of olive oil and don't like the flavor. One, so we use a high quality olive oil and it'll leave a peppery flavor at the back of your throat. I don't know if you've ever been to a restaurant where they're actually grind pepper into the olive oil. That's typically because it's inexpensive olive oil that would not normally leave a peppery flavor at the back of your throat. So they add pepper to it. So some of our customers like, is it rancid? Right? Because I'm burning. And we're like, no, that's actually a sign of a really good, high quality extra virgin olive oil. And then others, it's just adding a teaspoon of olive oil to your diet is a challenge, right? Like it tends to flow right through you, if you will. And that's just for a couple of days. And that's what we typically get. I mean, some people ask, hey, what's the toxicity of it? And really all the data that's out there, my current theory is it's related to the toxicity of olive oil, which probably involves drowning.
Meaning you'd have to have a vat of olive oil that you can't breathe in for it to be bad for you?
Can you imagine what is the toxicity point of olive oil? I mean, there probably is one, right? I mean, even waters can kill you, right? You can have hyperhidrosis or whatever it's called, where if you drink too much water too quickly, your cells will explode. But this doesn't have that feature. So you're really talking about large amounts of olive oil.
Okay. And is there a reason why you're delivering it with olive oil?
Yes. First off, we're kind of we are a research-based institution, and the research is in olive oil. The reason they chose olive oil, we're not exactly sure. There's some literature prior that shows how much of this molecule, we call it ESS60, how much of this ESS60 molecule you can get to dissolve in various oils. So like an avocado oil or an MCT oil or olive oil. It turns out that the highest concentration is in olive oil. So you can get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, about 0.6 in avocado oil, and about 0.3 in MCT oil. So we think that's why they chose olive oil. And that's therefore why we choose olive oil.
Got it. So it's not like olive oil helps with delivery somehow.
Well, so in some sense, any of the oils do, right? So the powder, if you just had a handful of the ESS60 molecules, right, it'd be a ton of them. You just have a black powder in the palm of your hand, right? It's like that's crystalline, and think of it like crystalline sugar versus dissolved sugar in water. You can consume that powder, and there's a lot of studies on consuming it, and that it just gets excreted out because the surface area is not big enough for absorption. Another reason, this may be part of your previous question, a reason we dissolve it in olive oil is because it's not water soluble. Right. So you've got to have an oil-based product in order to dissolve it. Now, the value of dissolving it is you get it down to a monomolecular layer. So individual ESS60 molecules are now floating around in the olive oil. So it's available for absorption into your system.
Okay. Cool. That makes sense. Max is thinking very hard.
I mean, tell me more about how it's a miracle drug. What doesn't it do? Will I not grow wings? Or, I mean, what am I, other than living 150 years. So here, first, it's great that you mentioned the word drug, because it's not, right? And the FDA has not evaluated it. It is not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. Our most consistent testimonial is people take it in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. So I know you guys did you shared your kind of night, what you guys do, your night routine, right? Nighttime routines. Mm-hmm. And neither one of you you were taking melatonin for a little while and then concerned about melatonin. Melatonin is an interesting thing because it is actually a hormone. And what they say is that it's the starting gun for telling your body it's time to go to sleep. Right. And so timing it is really important.
Sleep time.
Maybe it's a shotgun, maybe it's a bazooka. So timing of it is really, really important. Right. And the quantity, how much you take, is also really important, because you can imagine that it would be detrimental to have your system going, hey, it's time to go to sleep at 1 o'clock. Hey, it's time to go to sleep at 2 o'clock. Hey, it's time to go to sleep at 3 o'clock. So you can actually wake up feeling very groggy from kind of timed and an inaccurate quantity of melatonin. But even melatonin you take at night, and I don't know if you guys have ever kind of dug into sleep aids. There's a book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that book. It is absolutely a phenomenal book. I call it the Freddy Krueger of sleep books, because it will scare you to sleep. Because the data about what happens detrimentally to our bodies, both mentally and physically, is pretty scary. And he's 25 years a researcher. I think he may be at Harvard. It's some very prestigious university, and it's a phenomenal book. And in that book, he talks about the $2 billion sleep aid industry and how detrimental these actually are. This is the prescription sleep aid industry. You take all of them right before you go to sleep. What they actually do, there's a chemical in our body called adenosine that increases. And as it increases throughout the day, it causes us to feel drowsy, to desire sleep. These quote unquote sleep aids will relax the chemical pressure of adenosine. So you wake up feeling like you don't want to sleep without the desire for sleep, but they don't let you get your REM and your NREM sleep. That's so important, right? So your Whoop might be going crazy after you take, or your Oura Ring.
Hey, twins.
So our product is so very different from that because I'm not aware of anything that you can take in the morning and positively impact your sleep at night. I'm aware of things you can do, right? So you can get exercise in the morning.
Exposure,
and then light exposure, right? To get your circadian rhythm in line with the actual rising and falling of the sun. But other than that, I'm not aware of anything that you can take. And again, that is one of our most consistent testimonials.
And so you do recommend in the morning taking it, but timing it then?
So we can get in a couple of things. Some of our customers talk about if they take it later in the day, and this is probably in the 5 to 10% range, that it will keep them up at night. I have something that's turning on and off, and I apologize if you're hearing computer sounds. So some of our customers will say it will keep them up. That's not true for me, but I'm also the guy who loves to have coffee with a late dinner dessert, and it doesn't affect. Well,
you psycho! Get off my podcast. I would never.
If it was vegan dessert, is that okay? Does that make it okay?
Happy free vegan. That's me.
So I'm not a great example of that. But for that reason, we do tend to recommend, hey, take it in the morning. And then again, people report better sleep that night. So my typical routine is so you guys are familiar with Bulletproof coffee, right? And I know you mentioned Bulletproof at some point. I like Bulletproof coffee. We have a product that's in Mct Oil. And so I'll take our product, which what's interesting is Mct oil tends to be a pretty clear oil. When you add this dark powder, the ESS 60 molecule to it, it turns a beautiful purple color. So yeah, it's just gorgeous, right? And
that's cool.
I think it might actually be purple because we have some color,
I feel like if there's something that's going to keep me living forever, it's definitely a purple oil. Let's be clear. I had to make that up.
I was advised by my psychic to take purple oil to live forever. So I'll put that in my coffee. And while that's blending, the Bulletproof coffee with the ghee, I'll take a teaspoon and a half of our olive oil product. And then at lunch, I'll often do our avocado product. And that's kind of my routine. Now, I reached out to you back in 2020 because, and I don't even remember how, I came across your, I think Michigan experience. Was it Michigan that banned you?
I am banned in an entire state.
I don't, it was the internet wormhole that landed me there. And I just found the story fascinating. And then I reached out to you because one of the testimonials that we get is that it is a really good hangover helper. And so I was like, hey, you do stuff that causes hangovers 1 minute at a time.
We definitely have a soft spot for curing hangovers on this podcast. We care a whole lot about that. So go on.
Yeah. So, and I was just at a conference in Vegas last weekend, and it was, we actually have, oh, here it is. We actually have one, and this is really just about packaging so that we can communicate the message really easily. It was what we were handing out at the conference, and it was extremely popular at the conference. It's extremely popular at a lot of conferences. And for me, I take it usually if I know I'm going to be imbibing, the fancy word, right? I'll have one before, probably one in the middle, because we actually have these really convenient packaging little ampules. Ooh. So it's 5 mils or 1 teaspoon, which is also good for traveling. So I'll have one in my pocket.
Good ampule.
Yeah.
Wait, so
you had me at ampule? Purple oil and ampule.
Oh my God, this is the future. So it doesn't have to build up in your system. You can just be like, oh, I'm drinking tonight. I'll do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And
wow.
One of the testimonials on this weekend was a guy woke up feeling bad. He had not taken it the day before, took it, and 20 minutes later, he was feeling better. Now, I can tell you one of the mornings, we were out till 3:30. It's Vegas, right? That we went home early and got our sleep. We were out till 3:30. Had to be at the conference at 9, and there was lots of drinking, and I was up. Now I'm a little foggy. It's not a freaking miracle, right? Like, I was a little foggy, but no upset stomach and no headache. I was actually at a conference learning at 9 o'clock in the morning.
This is crazy. And is there any way to sort of describe do you know what these buckyballs are doing in your system to make that possible?
So the first question usually is, hey, these rats live 90% longer. Why? Right. And there is an understanding typically in the medical community, although just like most science, it's debatable. That's the proper way science is supposed to work. That probably didn't sound right, but anyway, there are debates about it, but typical medical community believes that aging is an oxidation and an inflammation process. So it's not surprising that really the MyVitalC product, there's one study, published study that's 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. Another one listed at 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. So it's a very strong antioxidant. And that in and of itself may or may not be a great thing. Like, there's debate about how much antioxidants you should be taking. At this point, I would look at the rats and look at the experiences of me and our customers and go, it's on the right side. Whatever side of that debate you're on, this product is on the right side of it. So that's antioxidant. The other is inflammation. So typically disease is an oxidation and an inflammation issue. Inflammation, we have to be really careful. FDA has some very strict guidelines about inflammation. They say when you're talking about inflammation, you're talking about disease. And as soon as I start talking about disease in the context of my product, I'm violating the law. So I don't do that. What we can say, and this is actually according to the FDA, is that it helps with inflammation, at least exercise-related inflammation, right? So we've all had that, extra clean and jerk or whatever that you've really pushed hard, and you've woken up the next day and you're sore, right? You feel inflamed. You're actually inflamed. This does help with that. What the FDA won't let us say, even if it's true, is that it helps any other kind of systemic inflammation. I think you guys talked about systemic and acute inflammation recently. So it doesn't allow us to say those things. And what I kind of finished that off with is the product fits perfectly in an anti-inflammatory diet. Those are a diet associated with the blue zone people, a group of people who tend to live longer, who have reduced incidences of stroke and reduced incidences of heart attacks.
So you are able to say that it is good for workout inflammation specifically. Oh,
yes.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah. Now, and
getting so convinced.
I thought it was the purple oil. I thought we were already done.
Yeah, no, we already arrived. Someone from Futurama.
All right. And to be totally frank, right? The as it relates to exercise recovery is because the majority of our product is olive oil, and the FDA has said olive oil is good for exercise recovery. So I'm not the kind of person who will pretend, it's all olive oil, and that's why I can legally say it. But my molecule's doing magic. I mean, it's just where we sit with the current product today.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, all of this seems Miraculous, which is why I'm wondering, you're not racing against other people that are doing the same thing. Like, why are there no competitors, or are there that I just haven't seen it?
Yeah, there are competitors, and it's a small market. One of the reasons is because it's basically fallen on my shoulders to get this information to as many people as possible. So that's one of the reasons that I'm here today, or the reason it is cool to hang out with you, but that's the reason I'm here. And the other, so there are people who are competing in what I would call the industrial C60 space. We really made a demarcation. The way I describe it is C60, right? This kind of original molecule that they discovered is for industrial applications. And there's peer-reviewed published research that shows when you improperly process it, it's actually harmful. It's got to be processed properly. Properly processed C60 is called ESS60. And we really created that demarcation to keep consumers safe. We actually, there are a number of C60 products out there. We purchased 22 of them, looked at, because we have a lab. We've been doing this since 1991. We threw their products into our HPLC, and their concentrations were, really their concentrations fit in with the reason I tried not to get into the supplement industry. In that period, remember, it was published in 2012. We started getting calls in 2013, and then it was until 2017 that we said, okay, we're gonna do this. In that time, I actually found a peer-reviewed published paper that said 50% of the supplements on the market that they had tested did not have in them what they said they had in them. And this was a market that, if you think about what I used to do, right, and we still do, actually, we still sell to universities and research institutions around the world. We sell them our black powder, and they typically will give it to a grad student or research associate who takes it back to their HPLC and confirms that we shipped them what we sold them, right? There's this accountability that just doesn't exist in the supplement industry because nobody has an HPLC at their house. Nobody has the ability to test it and confirm what's in it. And so we looked at the market, and honestly, no one had the concentration that they said they had in it. Of all the products we looked at, it was a 100%, you don't have the concentration in your product that you're claiming you have. There were people, I mentioned earlier that you can get about 0.8 milligrams per milliliter in olive oil, 0.6 in avocado, and 0.3 in MCT. That's not because you're not trying to get more in. It's because that's a saturated oil. In the early days, people were marketing their MCT oil as having 0.8 milligrams per milliliter because that's what's in olive oil and that's what's in the paper. They're like, oh, we'll just swap out the oil and we don't have any test equipment to check it. So we're just going to call it 0.8 milligrams per milliliter, which is bad on so many levels because there's a lot of powder left over when you're only getting 0.3 versus 0.8. And you should, as a scientist or somebody, who should be making supplements and selling them, should recognize that leftover powder is because it didn't go into solution. So there's no way it's the same concentration. I don't know if that made sense. Oh,
no, it makes sense. It also sounds like the origin story of everyone who starts a supplement company. They're like, well, I saw that the entire industry was doing it wrong, so now I'm going to do it right. And then they just join the industry.
Yes. And that's the people who wake up and decide to get wealthy and that they're going to do it with supplements. That is not how I ended up here.
Huh. So you've mentioned you've been doing this for a while and accidentally pulled into the industry. When did you actually start taking it yourself?
So
how long have you been doing it?
When that first paper was published, mid 2013, 2012, we started getting phone calls, and my business partner and I had our first conversation about like, hey, do we want to do anything with this? That was, again, mid 2013. I probably took a bottle or two then and didn't really notice anything. And like, it wasn't enough for me to continue taking it. Again, fast forward to 2017, I've been taking it consistently since 2018, the beginning of 2018, probably latter part of 2017.
So it is something that you feel like now it's sort of built up in your system and you feel a difference?
we get testimonials. So we can talk about testimonials, and I feel like it's very important to share. These are N of 1 testimonials, right? Like absolutely. And take them with a grain of salt. And I'm going to reiterate, the FDA has not evaluated our product. It's not intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease. Also, any testimonial that I share, I actually have had a conversation with the person, or we actually have an email trail with them, because I want that accountability, that to be able to trace back. And so I've totally forgotten the question that you just asked.
Oh, just the effects that you feel. Like, do you feel a difference, or you've noticed other people are mentioning that? Oh,
you asked about buildup, right, in our system, right? And so what we get, people often ask, like, how quickly am I going to see results? And I have video testimonials of people saying, and this is important if you're a coffee drinker, I tried it this morning and I didn't finish my cup of coffee today, right? Wow. That's significant.
Yeah, I'll say.
Remarkable.
And then we actually, one of my kind of favorite stories, it's arguably the worst testimonial story in history, but I like to share it because there's some interesting pieces of it. So one of our largest distributors here in Houston, she originally ordered the product for her dog. And she had no intent of taking it herself. And she noticed such a profound difference in her dog that she decided to start taking it. And I did a video interview with her, and she said, if you were to have asked me at about the 3-month mark, have I noticed anything? She would have said no, except if she slowed down and she looked at her life. She was like, well, I'm working later. I'm waking up earlier. I was never a morning person. And then this is the worst testimonial for any supplement ever. I've cleaned my garage.
Remarkable.
It's on all our literature now.
Yeah.
I also like that she was like 3 months in and she's like, no, I haven't noticed anything. I guess I'll keep doing it.
Well, I think she was probably at the point where she's like, maybe I need to stop it. Right. And then she was like, well, let me think about this. And the garage, yeah, it's a horrible testimonial. And it also means something, right? Whether it's the emotional baggage and the energy to chase after the emotional baggage of cleaning out your garage, or it's just the energy. Like, I can tell you one of the impacts it's had on my sleep. So I have to embarrassingly admit that I used to take 2 naps before noon on Saturday and Sunday. And the way that would work is I would wake up. I've got twins. I would go down, lay on the couch. They would literally sit on top of me watching cartoons, and I would take nap number 1. And then I would go downstairs, have breakfast, resume the position, and I would take nap 2. Since 2018, I almost don't take naps. Like, I just don't need. Now, back then, my kids are older now, so there's no watching cartoons anymore. But right after I started taking the product, there was still cartoons, and I would lay there and go like, okay, I'm not falling asleep. I need to get up and do something. So it definitely has an impact on sleep.
Interesting. I really want to get drunk with it.
We're on Fitheads, so I've got to share this one. And you can go on Instagram and find him. His name is Anthony Kunkel. He's a 2-time U.S. ultra running champion and swears by our product. My first conversation with him, the guy clocks 120 miles a week.
That's Max's lifetime record. It's his full on odometer.
Counting flights? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, that would be a good question for him. And I got to meet him. He was up in Austin, so I drove up to visit with him. But when I first had a conversation with him, he was like, hey, Chris, I tried the product. I was taking 1 serving. I didn't really notice anything. And then I tripled it. And I was like, wow. Right. Sounds like a.
That's how I feel about beer.
I didn't feel anything, so I tripled it. So yeah, he noticed a difference. And in that first conversation, he was like, I think your product could make the difference between somebody having a hobby as a runner or a career as a runner. Like we're talking the 3 to 5% range. That is appreciable. He later wrote me, I could forward you the email. He said, I don't believe that MyVitalC is speeding my recovery. I believe it's preventing damage in the first place. And the reason I say that is because on the last 10 miles of a 50-mile run, a phrase you don't hear very often.
I do not.
Where leg strength and stability were previously a problem, they're just not. And you can go like
That's ridiculous.
He's
basically saying it made him superhuman. Oh, that's ridiculous.
It is.
That's almost as good as the garage.
Should I swap that out, or should we like
for the website?
If the same person was an ultra runner and cleaned their garage, then I think we're onto something. Or clean their garage while running an ultra marathon.
Yeah. Oh man.
So the pain you're going through really has been my experience. And you think back to 2018, 2013, okay, we're not going to sell this. We're getting amazing testimonials. We probably should be selling, like we probably should be getting it into more hands. We're not getting negative responses. And then you go to 2018 and those phone calls just, it was a 100-fold increase in phone calls and benefits that people are talking about. And, then we have the dog from this weekend and, I'll talk about my own kind of journey with migraines and all of this. And all the while I'm like, I didn't make it. Like I didn't make it to do this. I didn't want it to do this. You're telling me stuff and I'm experiencing stuff that is hard to process as a scientist. It's a very weird position to be in. And also I'm very blessed, right? Like I get to wake up and try and get information into people's hands and they try it and they come back and say, thank you. I'm going to keep taking it because I feel a difference.
And
it almost feels like you're reluctant, but if it's all really as remarkable as you're saying, where do you see this heading? And what are your goals and what is your vision for our Mars future with President Elon?
Well, hopefully I'll have a roadster. Because I feel like if I'm going to go to Mars, I would like to be in a roadster. That would be the way to make that journey. It's interesting because prior to this, I've been on and off healthy. I think I've been, there's some axiom where the more you know you don't know. So my whole life, I played soccer, semi-professional soccer for 25 years. Well, I didn't play. It wasn't semi-pro the whole time, but I ended my career as a semi-pro soccer player. And so I was aware of like intense training, really not eating well. Maybe that's one of the reasons I only made it semi-pro. But I was aware of how unhealthy I actually was. Right. And so I had some awareness of being healthy and what I wasn't doing when we really started launching this product in 2018. I was like, well, I've got to know more. I've got to know more about this space, what's out there. Literally, one of my concerns was, hey, is it the case that everyone who throws out a supplement gets amazing testimonials? I think maybe that's just a thing, right? Like maybe it's not, maybe our product isn't doing anything. You just throw something in a box and stick it out there and people come back and say amazing stuff. I'm not sure that's true. And I can tell you, we were the opposite of placebo. I feel like not for human consumption is the opposite of placebo effect, right? Like there was no literature in the beginning saying, hey, here's what people have reported about the product. But at some point we get enough reports, we've got to share. It's important to start sharing that. So, it is just a weird, and I lost my train of thought again. Maybe I need more.
Yeah, right. Well, I just want to know, like, do you see this as everybody will be taking it 3 times a day? Like, that's the inevitable future of such a remarkable thing?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I feel like maybe you've transitioned from no way in God's green earth to maybe.
I was a maybe to a no way in God's green earth am I not going to take this.
Oh,
that's the transition I just made.
So I think, we have these reports and I believe them more and more over time because of what people do report, right? We keep getting consistent positive testimonials about the product, and they do seem to be similar. Again, the most consistent is taking it in the morning, mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. And that also brings me to some other things. Remind me about mitochondria. Because I'm tired of losing my spot, so I'll put it on you guys. So I think if this bears out, then why wouldn't you? Right? Like, why wouldn't somebody consume this on a regular basis? And right now, the product is not inexpensive. And the reason it's not inexpensive is because manufacturing this molecule, it's also, I'm not kidding when I say it performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application, right? Just that sentence alone should mean we should be working with this a lot more, right? Like, it should be everywhere. The reason it's not is because it's so expensive. It's extremely challenging. In fact, you have to use current technology is you have to use local temperatures of the sun to vaporize graphite rods in an inert environment in order to make a material that has only 10% fullerenes. That's a whole gamut of closed cage molecules. Now, and then you've got to process that further, and then you got to process it to turn it into something that I would be comfortable consuming. We call that ESS 60. So it's expensive. Now, the look on your face, like with the vaporized graphite rods and inner environment, that was a look of pure joy, basically. It's important to share. If you collect the soot from a candle flame, and you usually do this by just taking a cold plate of steel, holding it over a candle, you'll collect a charcoal substance, that has parts per million, parts per billion of this molecule. Right. So it is 100% a naturally occurring molecule. We have all been exposed to it. It's just in such minute quantities that we're unaware, and that's not a great manufacturing process. The other thing that's good to know, like, we have this picture of a synthetic hormone being very different than a natural hormone. And in fact, it can be the case. You can have the same chemical compound, right, with the same atoms in it, but it can be right facing or left facing. These are kind of organic phraseology, organic chemistry phraseology. It can be right facing or left facing and have the exact same molecular count and have very different applications. The difference between a naturally occurring ESS 60 molecule and one that's been produced is nothing, because it's such a simple molecule. It's literally 60 carbon atoms in the shape of a sphere, in the shape of a soccer ball, right? And that's it. So there's no room for, you produced it, so it's right facing, or you collected it from a candle, so it's left facing.
It sounds so elegant.
Now, let me add this. This is really cool. And then we'll get to mitochondria. Maybe I will remember.
It's my job.
So this molecule is big enough for any atom on the periodic chart to fit inside of it. Right. So there's actually a new symbol. This is how you know you're about to get a Nobel Prize, is when you add a symbol to chemistry. The @ symbol, which we're familiar with our email addresses, right, is now in chemistry. So you can have lanthanum at C60, which means lanthanum physically trapped inside of the buckyball, not covalently or ionically bonded to the exterior. And that's interesting because even back in the early 90s, they were theorizing that you could put radioactive atoms inside of the buckyball. Most of the chemistry that we know that works on biology actually does work to on the exterior of this cage. So you could attach proteins so that this molecule with its little radioactive payload could attach to cancer cells and deliver the radioactive payload directly to cancer cells. Now, that's not off the table. It's already expensive, and then to do it with radioactive material, that's hasn't been done. But that's elegant.
It's like the CBD of chemicals. Just does all the things.
CBD is interesting. CBD I'm excited that the market for CBD has expanded, because we will ultimately probably exceed CBD. And it's opened the door because people are now a lot more willing to try things that, that might have benefits, that have a modicum of research that support the reasons they're taking them, versus like, oh, I'm only going to take these things that have whatever hundreds of years of experience, if that makes sense. And so I think that's all part of, I'm really irritated by my computer making noises. I apologize. But thank you, Bill Gates, who's retired from Microsoft. So yeah, it took away my train of thought again.
Well, have you found that helps you in your pitch? Is that people are willing to take new stuff?
It's like CBD, but better.
Well, so it's interesting, and one of my focuses is the marketing. Like, how do you market this, right? What was your initial reaction, Ali, when I gave you I think I sent you like 3 half paragraphs, and you're like, oh, that's really interesting, and no way in hell. I mean, I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
Well, I think a part of it is that you opened with the industrial applications. So yeah, let's workshop this. All right. So first, we're not going to talk about the tires or ink. And, I don't know. I mean, what I remember I wrote back, I was like, can I see some more studies on why I should be taking this? And that will probably be what you need moving forward. I'm sure you'll figure out you already got a logo. You'll figure out what the marketing is, but stuff beyond the N of 1 studies, I think, will make a big difference.
Yeah, that that is our focus. And actually, the other groups out there working in the industrial C60 space, we're unaware of them doing well. They don't even have a lab. They're not from a science pedigree. So I'm pretty confident that they're not doing any research, and we are actually doing legitimate research.
All right. Are you taking?
And in fact, you've got an Oura ring. I started a study. So I was introduced through some podcast that I was on to a professor out of the University of California, San Diego, who's a consultant for Oura Ring. And we started a project where we were going to collect, basically we're going to get data from people who have never tried the product for 10 days, 10 days on the product, 10 days off the product, 10 days back on the product. And then you may know there's a back end to Oura Ring with a whole lot more data, right? And so we're going to take these observations and then work on an Oura Ring study. That was pre-pandemic. It turns out, I don't know if you know this, but the Oura Ring does a pretty good job of identifying COVID and other things that ail you. Yeah. And so he disappeared. Like, I send an email every now and then, say, hey, I saw your COVID paper. Good job. And he's like, thank you. Comes up for air. That's all the interaction I've gotten with him really since. We did go on and actually did our own kind of question and answer study. So it's been written on or whatever, at least on the back. But this is 10 days on the product, 10 days off, the blue, red on it, yellow off of it, green on it. And the questions that we asked were, how would you rate your sleep? How easy was it to fall asleep? How restless were you? And on average, how did you feel the next day? And it is consistent. Like, that's why I'm very comfortable saying our most consistent testimonial is better sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you be comfortable giving it to your twins?
Yes.
Oh, best answer.
Yeah. Would I recommend any pregnant, nursing, or young children take it? No. right? Because that's the smart science. I have no reason, obviously, to believe that there's anything detrimental in that space. But that's not how this, well, at least it's not how this industry should work. I do not recommend it to pregnant, nursing, or young children. It's just not worth it. And interesting, in that original study, they didn't give any. They started dosing the rats at 10 months. So that's about halfway through a Wistar rat's life. Excuse me, 1/3 of the way through a Wistar rat's life. And then they actually stopped at month 17. So about 2/3 of the way through their life. And even though they stopped, the rats, again, given,
they still kept going.
They still kept going.
So all of that that you've been taking thus far is already benefiting you into the future. It's like you're gonna keep living longer even if you stop your habit.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we redo that study, and we will, we won't stop that dosing. Like we'll continue to dose them just to see what happens. Cause I think that's extremely fascinating that they stopped at 17 and lived to 62.
Yeah. Whoa.
And the typical died at 32. And that may have to do with the mitochondria.
Hey, he's on it.
So we do know that it does get that it's the molecule is small enough that it can get into the cells. For those of you who may not remember, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of your cell. Every one of your cells has mitochondria. It's really a big topic now. And Dr. Gundry's latest book is I don't know if I'm listening to it, so I have no idea if I'm halfway through it or what. But a lot of it is about mitochondria and how ketosis helps your mitochondria, and ways that his diet supports mitochondria as well. And we know that this can get into the mitochondria and participate in that process of making ATP. If you were to fill a room full of mitochondrial experts, physicians, and ask them, hey, would it be good to have a nice antioxidant in the mitochondria while it's going through its process making ATP? They would all raise their hand. And so there is something, this is what I believe, there's something going on at that core level. Because you think about the testimonials that we get, it's not affecting, it doesn't seem to be positively impacting one system. It seems to be positively impacting lots of systems. And frankly, if it just gave you better sleep, right, that's better mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Better sleep is that,
we call it the lowest hanging fruit on this podcast.
Right.
You're going to do one thing that makes everything better: sleep.
Yeah. Sleep is impressive. And if that's all we're doing, then that really could be the positive thing. Even with the hangovers, right? If you're just, you're only getting a few hours of sleep, it's dramatically interrupted. By the way, my vagus, so you guys, I don't know if you have noticed on the Oura Ring, your resting heart rate takes a long time to get down to the lowest point when you.
I haven't noticed. Please bring it up again.
My 3 hours of sleep was straight across.
Oh, wow. So you just dipped down and stayed there? Or are you talking about when you were drinking? So
when I finally went to sleep after drinking and some gambling, there was no ongoing decline. And I'll be honest, I didn't look at like the comparison before, but when I was first talking with the guy, his name is Benjamin, who's the Oura Ring consultant, it dawned on me, hey, you have data related to sleep. And it's like, oh yeah, here it is. And the first one I looked at of mine, having had some drinks, it was straight across. Now I do get them where there is that decline, but there's something about just 3 hours of sleep, because it's never, when I'm drinking, it's never straight across, right, for 3 hours and then down. It's always a slow decline. And I don't even know what to make of it, but that was true this last weekend for me. I'm
pretty sure ideally you want it to be a V. So you hit the lowest heart rate in the middle of the night, it declines really quickly, and then starts coming back up. And so when I drink, I just I see just like a straight line down. But straight across sounds even worse. Good Lord.
Well, so for me, it's typically, so you ramp up in the morning, but that's a 15-minute process, at least for me. So it really is, I think the best one is you get to your low resting heart rate as quickly as possible and you stay across that.
Yeah, interesting.
And he also says like intense exercise will cause that drop. Ostensibly, you're processing whatever muscular repairs that you need to do during that time.
Right. Huh. Max, are we doing this? Let me know if you need to grab my Orit data when I do 10 days on, and then don't want to give you the 10 days off because I won't stop.
I can tell you, when we were doing the study, I was like, I've got to do this study. And this was right in 2020, right? And I had a busy first 3 months of 2020. I was in Vegas for a conference. I was in Nashville I was all over. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to skip my product like for these months. Like there's just no way these are going to be the 10 days that I choose not to take it. And so I pushed it off. I do believe it has an impact on jet lag also. So we've traveled, we went to Dubai probably a month and a half ago, and we just don't miss a beat. And my wife and I are pretty energetic anyway. We keep going. But to not miss a beat in that much of a time shift was really just confirmation, because we've done that before.
Dang.
Oh, and so let me share kind of my migraine study. I've got a spreadsheet that goes back to 2014, and I was tracking my migraines. I used to get 4 or 5 migraines a year. Yes, I am that geeky guy who's tracking his migraines to try and figure out what's causing them.
I respect the crap out of that. You can't destroy what you don't track.
That's a great phrase. So 4 to 5 migraines a year. And in 2018 is when I started taking the product on a regular basis. Didn't get a single migraine then. I've probably had 3, maybe 4 total migraines since 2018. You couple that with my wife. So I always remember the number 9 with my wife, because she had a prescription and they would only give her 9 of the prescription per month. Anything after 9, she just had to muscle through. I don't know if you've ever had migraines, but they're just miserable experiences. It actually took me a long time, really about halfway through a flu. I shoved some MyVitalC into my wife's mouth and she felt better the next day. And then she continued to take it, and she's down to 1 a month, 1 every other month.
Wow.
Also, thank you for reminding me I have to feed my dogs a pill. Oh, goodness.
You mentioned that you were taking it with Bulletproof Coffee. Have you talked to Dave Asprey about this? I'm sure he's really hard to get a hold of, but he seems like the kind of person that's like, ooh, a new thing that could maybe work. I'll put it in me.
So he has taken Carbon 60 before from another company. I've reached out to his team and had conversations. Nothing has happened with it yet. So I don't know exactly why. And he's obviously an incredibly busy person and doing some pretty amazing stuff in the longevity space for sure. But yeah, I think I through somebody else who knew his team. I'm dropping emails. It didn't work with you, but eventually we connected. So eventually we may connect. And Dr. Gundry takes the product, right? I send him stuff regularly, and has expressed interest. It just really with his marketing team and him and us, we just haven't been able to connect in the right way to get something launched.
Well, cool. I'm excited to see where it heads in the future.
Me too. Like it's going to be amazing. Like at the end of the day, I'm just very lucky. Oh, we have a face serum. There's an interesting story behind the face serum. You can imagine I didn't want to be a supplement guy. You can imagine my desire to be a face serum guy was, a couple notches below that.
What's
people were
zero? Yeah.
negative 82. So people were reporting kind of skin and hair improvements just from consuming the product. And one of our business partners was like, anytime she would pour it, she would actually, there'd be a little bit, on the edge of the bottle. And so she would take it and wipe it on her skin. And she's like, hey, I've seen improvements. We should make a face serum product. I'm like, okay.
Sure.
I'm not getting up early. But
getting up early.
Yeah, I'm not waking up any earlier to work on that project. But it turned like the response to it has been phenomenal. So I'm happy to send some to you. By the way, I'm happy to send you guys some product. And if you're interested, we could reconvene in 30 days or so. And you could say it didn't do anything for me, or you could say it did a lot of stuff for me.
Check out these gills.
Gills. I do love a good supplement transformation video as soon as I make one that actually happens.
There's got to be one
about this, that supplements are the type of thing where it's like, I don't know, is there a difference? It's never like a look at the before and after. Yeah. So hopefully this is the one.
Well, and that's why you probably notice that the testimonials I tend to share are not like, oh, everyone says they feel better. Right. Like, I mean, we do have our consistent testimonial, but you look at the black and white nature of 2 naps every day on Saturday and Sunday before noon, and then none. Right. And I'm not saying I don't take naps anymore. That stopped happening as soon as I started taking it on a regular basis.
Now I just do it for love of the game, not because I need it.
You want to get out of practice.
Yeah. Napping. I do enjoy naps. Like I kind of missed 2 naps before noon. There was something, I don't know, wasteful in that.
Time.
So that's one, I would talk about just having in this podcast a knee pain. So when I quit playing soccer, I had a knee pain, and I do get other aches and pains, right? Working out, running, whatever. But this particular knee pain was on the top of my kneecap, and I had it for years from the point I quit soccer until I started taking this on a regular basis. So it's those, 0 and 1, those black and white situations are the things that, I don't know, tickle my little scientific brain, as opposed to, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. The runner stating that, like, taking a hobby to a career, that switchover is like an insane amount of difficulty, right? And if he's saying that that's going to make the difference between being really good at something and then actually making money on it, that's a remarkable testimonial for sure.
Yeah. No, Anthony's good. And he's actually put together, I think we're getting it added to the website. I think I've assigned it to the team. It may not be up yet, where he went in and went through, it sounds like a good plan to collect sleep data, right? 10 days before you take it, 10 days on it, 10 days off it. Well, he's cycling in different, I don't know, I forget what he calls them, but groupings of training, right? And he'll cycle off the product, cycle back on the product, cycle at a lower dose, ramp up the dose going into a race. And so he's journaling and keeping track of all of these details. And so he's an impressively analytical person in his approach to supplements. And he had the same kind of comment that you did, which was, a lot of these things I try and no, I don't notice anything.
Right. Interesting. Huh. All right. So where can the fitheads find more about what you're doing?
Well, I've made you guys a special URL so they can actually go to myvitalc.com/fitheads. And they can find our product. What I will recommend when you go there, we've got it in caplets. So gel caps is good if you're traveling, right? Although you can take these these little ampules. I had you at ampule. You can take these ampules to travel also. Anything that you find there, you can buy a one-off, but we do have a significant discount for subscription. Our team is not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription. We have like 500 5-star reviews on Google. Just take advantage of that discount. There's also a FitHeads discount. Should it be plural or singular?
Let's go plural. We're a whole team.
Okay, FitHeads. All right. So if they use the coupon code FitHeads, they'll get an additional $15 off of their initial order.
Wow.
Very cool.
Well,
do you guys have
so much?
Do you guys have pets? Do you have like dogs or cats or?
Max has got a Jax.
Yeah, I have a dog.
A dog. Okay.
Do you want it to live 90% longer or nah?
I was just planning on cloning him, I guess, but yeah, this works too.
this will be a lot cheaper. I'm pretty sure. I haven't checked the cloning prices recently.
I'll hop on Craigslist.
Just so you ask if he wants his dog to live longer. We sell a lot more dog product than we do cat product. So dog owners are significantly more interested in their dogs living longer than, and maybe it's the 9 lives and they're like 9 is enough. We don't really need any more than that. But we
number of migraines you're allowed in a month, and it's the number of lives your cat gets.
So yeah, if there's any kind of people out there, you got to represent your feline nature and order some product to save
people,
your cat.
keep your animals alive. That's ridiculous. Yeah, that makes sense. Dog people are obsessed.
They are, yeah. I have a dog. I've got a mini schnauzer. They're a lot of fun.
And it is 873 years old.
Actually, I just have a bottle of the cat product. So the dog product tastes like bacon and the cat one tastes like salmon. And I just happen to have the cat one at home. So she gets the cat version, trying to pad the cat numbers. You realize Max
is going to be buying the dog version now.
Oh, we've had people ask us, like, can I consume the bacon flavored stuff?
Can I get the bacon?
And the answer is yes. It's really just a bacon essence to change the flavor. It's
nice. So it's human grade still.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much. This has been very interesting and convincing.
Damn it.
I guess, yeah. Let us know in the comments, Fitheads, if you want to see us experiment with it.
What if we did? Could you do like 60 shots?
Oh, there we go. Hangoverless power hour.
Every 10th shot is a shot of MyVitalC.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Chris.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Allie. Thanks, Max, for having me.
That's fun.
And thanks to the Fitheads. If you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts, that helps us out a whole lot. And we'll see you next week.